There's a great quote by my uncle Epictetus that said, "First say to yourself what you would be, and then do what you have to do." It's a great quote. When you set out to get in shape, there was probably this projected version of yourself, this future self, if you will, that you wanted to be. This self probably looked good, performed well, and generally felt good about themselves overall. Am I close? But now look around, and after years of exercise, ask yourself, does that seem like enough? If you've got in better shape, if you feel a little bit better about yourself, do you feel satisfied? Is it enough to thrive? Maybe that's a better way to say it. And sadly, I believe it's not. If you look around, most of us are just making it through the day. We're just surviving. I believe that we need to re-engineer ourselves, so to speak. Training for aesthetics and run-of-the-mill self-esteem is not going to cut it anymore. We need to intelligently, that's an important part, seek out experiences that are uncomfortable. That can initially happen in the gym, but after a while, we're going to have to go outside the walls of the gym. How do you know you've become someone who's over-engineered for normal human existence? How do you know you've become someone who isn't just surviving, but thriving? And the answer, well, is you're doing a lot of things outside of the normal human experience. Now, the real theme of the video and this talk today is this word called Misogi. Have you heard this word? I imagine that you haven't. So let me tell you a little story. There's an old Japanese myth that tells the tale of this god named Azangi, who goes to the netherworld to find his wife, Izanami. Now, this is a very taboo journey. Izanagi stops after leaving the netherworld and steps into this freezing cold waterfall. And here's the point. He washes off and purifies himself. And this act has been known to be called a Misogi in Japanese culture because it's this adventurous act of purification, of actualization. So once a year, we'll use this ancient, obscure Japanese term to reference this experience of going and having an adventure. We encourage our members to plan and prepare for their own Misogi. And so in modern time, like, what does this actually mean? What is a Misogi? Well, the specifics are it's a defined end-date experience. It's not some nice thought or intention. It's something that you put on the calendar. Why is that? Well, because it's not just something that you want to think about, it's something that you want to experience. A Misogi typically is physical in nature, so it's not just a mental adventure. It's something that you physically do. It needs to be really gnarly. That means there needs to be a 50% chance that you're not going to finish. However, it can't kill you, and it can't harm others. So there's a lot of space there to create. As long as it's really challenging, as long as it can't kill you potentially, and it doesn't harm anybody else, hey, sky's the limit. Now, the goal of this video is not to just give you some random obscure information, but it's that you and I could go about starting to design this adventure that could have a real impact in your life. It's not just frivolously experiencing what the world has to offer, but it's trying to connect this latent symbolism of the experiences we have with something that's meaningful and important to us so that we, much like the old ancient myth, can come out of the waterfall a changed or evolved person. So in doing so, there's a couple of things that you want to consider. One, what's meaningful to you? What is the reason that you're exercising? What are some of the things that you struggle with as a human being that if you went and had this mountaintop experience, you would come back a changed person? I don't know what that answer is for you, but I know that there is a way to concoct this experience and this adventure that has some of those things as a part of it. You have trouble focusing? Man, pick something where it demands you to focus on the activity at hand. You feel like you don't have great endurance, or man, you have this really negative mindset. Put yourself in a position where you'll have to be challenged in that specific capacity. Second, and this is something that people often forget, it should also have some components that you have an aptitude for. This is going to be hard enough as it is, but it doesn't mean that the whole thing has to suck. So I'll give you some examples. If you love camping, man, put camping as a part of this. If you love researching and investigating new ways of training, man, make that a part of the process. If you love buying new gear, if you love traveling certain locations or places, there can be aspects of this that are really, really satisfying and rewarding. And so considering in your past what you've had an aptitude, and aptitude doesn't mean your world-class proficiency, it just means that you like it. It means when no one else is watching, this is something that you really gravitate towards. There's a way to simultaneously challenge yourself and produce meaning, but also honor some of the things that you love and gravitate towards. Now, with both of those together, once again, it doesn't mean that it's easy. Here's some examples. Going to the Sahara Desert and running 100 miles. Getting on an eco bike and riding for 24 hours. 12 hours of ski touring. Now, look, this doesn't have to be endurance-based, even though all those examples had some type of endurance component. But I will say that as we get older, there is a latent connection in something about endurance and suffering and being a human being. I'll just throw that out there. Now, some further specifics for the Misogi. You won't be able to fully prepare for it. You won't, and that's okay. You're not a specialist in this. If you were to go do an endurance race, we wouldn't expect you to have done that endurance race before. You've never done it before. Secondly, a crowd or a social aspect of this is not necessary. That means that it doesn't have to be a sanctioned event for it to be a Misogi. We have people concoct some wild stuff where no one was the wiser. There was no one around. It was just for them and just for the experience that they would have individually. And so that means you don't necessarily need to pay to enter. You don't have to pay to play in this little adventure. Thinking outside the box is really important here too. There's a certain thing that makes your jaw drop when you think about it. There's a certain thing where it's like, whew, man, that is outside of my comfort zone. That probably means you're on the right track. That means what makes my jaw drop is going to be different than what makes your jaw drop. A great quote from Malcolm Gladwell, who looks like he's from planet Mars, is, I do what I can to make sure I'm different from everyone. And that's the question that I always ask myself. So right here, we're going to have a little coaching session. Right now, I want you to write 3 what-if statements. Now, typically when we say what if, we're anticipating all the bad stuff. But let's put this around the topic that we're talking about. What if I was able to fill in the blank? What if I was able to go do that 3-day race in the Sahara? What if I was able to find a way to backcountry ski in Iceland off of a boat? What if I was able to go surf in the Maldives? Sky's the limit. But right now, I want you to pause the video and just write out 3 what-if statements. Just you and a pen or your phone. Great job. Now, look at those sentences and make it a little bit more specific. Add a possessive tense. Instead of, what if someone was able to, make it about you. What if I was able to do this myself? Next, quantify the statement. Instead of, what if I was able to go backcountry ski? What if I was able to go backcountry ski for 48 hours, eclipsing 50 miles within that 2-day period? Make it quantifiable so you know if you passed or failed. That's an important part of this. And then lastly, add any specific dates or numbers to make this image, this visualization, a little bit more clear. Now, get your calendar out. Pencil it in. When are you going to do this? What's a date that you're going to commit to making this happen? Now, we're not talking about design or programming or how to prepare for this, but I would recommend that it be somewhere between the 3 and 6 month period. As the famous Duke Ellington said, I don't need more time, I need a deadline. A much larger consideration is this. You first believe that you can be that person, and then we do the thing. The greatest traction that we can get in order to feel like the person is to do something that that person would do. And so that's the start. This is the concept of Misogi that here at BPR we use to create a once a year, really gnarly experience and adventure that gives our training meaning and gives us as humans something to grow towards. This has been a monumental statement about incremental change brought to you by the good people at BPR.